All right, here we are at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, welcome to our webinar for Unity Homes entitled Working with Unity. So I am Mark Hertzler. I am the director of Unity Homes. This is Alison Keay, our sales team lead. We're going to be your hosts for today, and I will do a quick rundown of the agenda, and then we're going to get started. So we're going to start off. Alison's just going to give us a real quick overview of Unity Homes, who we are and what we do. Then we'll get into the meat of our webinar today, which is working with Unity and the steps that are entailed in that process. And then we'll end it with our question and answer time. So if you have questions, feel free to enter those at any time throughout the webinar. There's the, Alison, is this right? The question option, not the chat option, correct?
Correct. Yes, please.
So you want to make sure that you put those in the question section and not the chat section. So I'm going to hand it over to Alison, and she's going to give us a quick overview of Unity Homes.
Great. So I'm sure a lot of you know who Unity Homes is, having signed up for the webinar today. But just in case there's some folks who are less familiar, we like to give just the basic overview of who is Unity Homes. So we are a brand of Bensonwood, who's a timber framing company and offsite fabricator that has been around since the 1970s. We are one of their several brands and geared towards single-family residential homes. And we are offsite fabricated, so we utilize panels, high-performance insulated panels in our construction. And what does high performance mean? High performance is a focus on energy efficiency and comfort and indoor air quality and health. So it kind of ties all of those things in. We offer pre-designed homes, and we have a design system that allows you to tailor your specific design to your program needs and your site. But it is all kind of working in a predetermined way of growing and changing the designs. And why might somebody be interested in pursuing Unity Homes? It's definitely for the vetted high performance results that you get with our shell package, which is our exterior insulated enclosure. The type of fabrication that we do is offsite, but higher quality. So your investment is protected using the factory setting to build that. So protected materials, protected or not protected, but higher quality processes because of a built-in quality control versus site built, which doesn't really have the ability for those sort of processes and protection of materials. It's a simplified process. We aim to provide a process that brings you from kind of discovery phase through the move-in that would, facilitate an easy process. We're guiding you a lot of that way, even for some things that might be partnered with another entity for. Efficient, optimized designs are another value point of Unity Homes. We have really well vetted floor plans that are really looking to optimize funds as well as efficiency of living within the homes, all in order to keep costs down.
Yeah, thanks for that overview. And I would just add, for more information, you can check out our website, also our YouTube channel. We have other videos, webinars that go into more detail on some of the things like our design system and working with local builders and that sort of thing. So plenty of information both on our website and our YouTube channel under Unity Homes. So now getting into working with Unity Homes. So you've all signed up for this webinar, so you have begun to engage with us. How do you really get the process going? There's several ways that you can do that. Going onto our website, filling out the contact form. That gives us some information about you and your project, and then allows one of our sales advisors to reach out to you and begin that conversation. You can attend one of our open houses. We typically have an open house once a month from about April through November, scattered around mostly New England or in the Northeast. Actually have one coming up in October in Nashua, New Hampshire,
Yep.
and another one in November in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So those open houses are a good opportunity, or you could also come to one of our factory tours. We typically do those every other month, skipping the winter months. But that's another good opportunity to come learn more about us, meet us. So any of those ways, you can start engaging with one of our sales advisors, and they are going to lead you through the process that we're going to talk about coming up here. So there's really sort of 4 stages to working with Unity. The first one is what we call getting started on your journey. And that's where we really want to set a good foundation and get the information that we need in order to get you on the right path. So Alison, tell us a little bit about what needs to happen when we're in the getting started step.
So getting started is the phase where you'll be working with Unity sales team member for some guidance in going through this. But first you'll need to understand your budget. That's a key part of any decision to buy or build a house, is understanding where you fall in your budget so that you can pursue things that make sense for that budget.
And what we really want to help you maximize that budget and make sure that you're within budget. So really establishing that up front is helpful so that we can make sure that we can get the things that you want, but we're not going to present something that's way out of your range.
Right. And we also can provide guidance on how to build a budget, kind of average costs for certain things. But we also are going to recommend that you connect with financing institutions if that's something that's part of your project of financing. We have contacts that we can connect you with, and they are very much suited to help you build that budget appropriately, all the way from considering costs of land to costs of build.
Yeah, really establishing what you can afford and what makes sense for you really is a good start. And then you want to talk about the next step?
Yeah, so land is part of that as well. So it plays into your budget, but it also influences the design. So we like to provide guidance and resources on finding the right place to build. We have a connection with a lot of area realtors that we're able to share with you if you're still in that looking phase. We recommend that if you found a piece of land and you're considering it, you're trying to kind of evaluate it, whether or not it's the right piece of land for you, that you might connect with a site planner or site contractor that can really visit the site and evaluate kind of it from a buildability perspective. But once you have that, you'll also need the next step, which is a site survey or site plan. And that will be completed. It's a little, I like to explain it as a step further than a basic survey, which might just be the property boundaries. This is going to be something that shows and calls out setback requirements on the land for the local zoning requirements. It's going to show where a septic and a well might be located. And an important aspect is also topography. So 2-foot increment topography is really important information. And if there are public utility connections, where those are happening, and even usually the driveway location and design. And those are things that are really going to answer a lot of questions when it comes to talking about the design. The site informs a lot of design questions that we can't answer until we have that information. So the site plan is actually required to begin a contract with Unity Homes, but it informs things in the sales process that will help us gear you budget-wise, as well as what is going to even work on your site.
Yeah, and our design system, even though we're working off of what we call a design system, it's still very flexible. It'll work with a lot of different sites, but knowing the site really helps us narrow in on the configuration that's going to work for you. So as Alison said, very important step to really getting started here. So in that first section, the first phase with the sales advisor, we're going to talk to you about your budget. We're going to talk to you about the home site that you have. You'll want to have some information on that. And as Alison said, we can have resources to help you find land, resources to help you secure financing. We can help you set a budget. Once you have those things, then we're going to move into the next step, which is preparing you for the PSA phase. So PSA, that stands for Pre-Construction Services Agreement. That's the phase where you're really starting to hone in on the design. So before we get to that, then we're going to start talking to you about what we call discovery. So these are the things that we want to know. What are you trying to achieve with your design? And we use this word called program. Program just means who's going to be living in the home, what kind of rooms are you looking for, what is it that you want that house to be able to do for you? So we're going to look at the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, additional spaces like office or craft areas, workout rooms, rec rooms, all those sorts of things. We're going to talk about what are your priorities in regards to your program. Alison, you want to talk about some of the other things that we'll sort of explore at that point?
Yeah, and sometimes it's easier to think about your program versus a goal square footage to start with. Sometimes those things can be a little connected or not line up too. So, so what some of the other priorities that you might have might be single level living. So are you looking to age in place? Is it a place you want to maybe in the future be able to have single level living on? Garages and how they are attached or detached from the house could be a goal for the project. Bedroom suites versus individual bedrooms with shared bathrooms, your makeup of that you're interested in. What is it about your site that might influence the design too? So views that you're trying to capture, siting for PV or solar, things like that are all we're gonna ask you to prioritize those things too, because new construction and design is always a compromise between all of those things. So we're doing as much as we can to make all of those things happen, but ultimately there is some compromise in there.
Yeah, and again, this ties back into the first phase where we're getting your budget set and we're getting to know your land a little bit, because both of those things are very tied into the ultimate plan that you come up with and that we help you work through. So
an example of that might be if your view is facing north, but you are also interested in solar, you kind of have to choose a priority of that and see how we can make them both work. And we're usually able to get both of those in there, but it does weigh into how the design ultimately turns out.
Right. Sometimes that means we're rotating a garage, 90 degrees so that you have an eave facing south for solar.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that we can do there within our system, as long as we know all those different aspects of your program and your site and that sort of thing. So after we go through the program, we kind of get that discovery of what is it you're trying to achieve. Then we're going to walk you through the different options that we have. And those come down to there's sort of three things. There are our plans. So those of you that have looked into Unity, you know that we have 5 starting platforms that we call them. And then also there are design paths and then packages. So you want to talk a little bit about the packages and the plans, the design paths, I mean?
Design paths. Okay. So within our design paths, I like to think of them almost as contract types for that first PSA contract. And that is express or streamlined. And an express PSA contract would outline that you're choosing a plan as it's shown on the website currently. So we have a range of plans that pretty much go from the basic smallest version of that platform or design style all the way through the kind of more complex versions of that home platform. And you can choose one of those plans as they're shown on the website, and that is called Express.
And that's on the home plans page on the website. So
Yes.
you go to the top, you'll see home plans, and then that will show all our Express plans.
Yes, exactly. And one of the requirements for Express is a slab on grade foundation. But the pros of the Express contract is you're going to be able to move a little bit faster. Your decision-making process is a lot simpler. And we happen to need a lot more information up front to make sure that that's a good fit. But that's a great option. Streamlined is our other contract type, and that utilizes our design system. And so you can choose a platform or your design style to start with, and then you get to choose the parts and pieces that get added onto that design. So our other elements that we have, we call components. So you might have your main volume of one of the platforms, which is the smallest iteration of that design, and you're able to plug on, say, the connector mudroom or a screen porch or garage, as the design system allows. So we have something called a constellation that the sales team can share with you and go through with you to determine what parts and pieces and their location plug-on points are going to be the right fit for what you're trying to do with your site and your program.
Yeah, and all of those Express home plans were derived from our streamlined system.
Right.
So we took all those components, mixed and matched them on with options for floor plans, and created those Express plans. So that's an example of what you can do within the streamlined system.
Yep. And I'll also note that streamlined, in addition to the parts and pieces that you can plug on that are kind of up to you, the interior layout, there are also interior layout options that exist. And
Packages?
package
Yes.
types, yes. So the package types, we have a shell package, which is the insulated high performance envelope. It is essentially framed, insulated, sheathed with windows and doors installed, and it has an interior pack-out layer that's used for running electrical and plumbing on site within the thick wall that is the exterior wall. But it's also going to include things like the interior partition walls, floor systems, timber frame, roof panels are part of that. And in the case of the VARM, that is a truss roof system. And so that would be the shell package. We're going to work on the design of it with you, and the fabrication is going to be by us, and we'll deliver and install that. That's our shell package. The tempo package is our second package type, and it would build onto the shell package to also include finishes that are offered by Unity. So there are a few materials that are left out of the tempo package because Unity doesn't have high volume purchasing power, or there's no cost advantage to you for us doing that. Those couple materials happen to be roofing, garage doors, and kitchen countertops, and drywall. I sometimes include drywall in that too. So those are materials that are not going to come from Unity. They'll be supplied by your local builder, but most other things are going to be available in our tempo package,
such as flooring and
Yes.
cabinetry and lighting fixtures and plumbing fixtures and trim.
Interior doors,
Yep.
flooring. And we also only offer the tempo package within the New England states. And that has to do with, where it remains cost effective to include shipping and things to those areas. The best part of the tempo package, I think, is the guidance that you get from working with our team on making those selections. We have a really nice process that's easy, not overwhelming. You'll start with, a slow introduction to a nice software where you can browse the materials that are offered, and leave notes and kind of favorite things for the selections team. And then they're going to work with you on finalizing all of those choices.
And there are plenty of options. Within that, you are not stuck with just a small palette of options.
Right.
We'll present something that we think works, but you'll have the ability to choose some upgrades or choose some different options. And if it does happen to be something that we don't supply, that's not a problem. You can work with your local builder to get that, or you can supply that yourself.
Right. And that way the tempo package is a little bit like a la carte.
Correct.
You can choose to leave particular materials out of the tempo package if you want to supply that.
But as you said, our team is great at helping walk you through those options and those choices. And the tempo process sort of culminates in coming to our showroom, which we are sitting in right now. So you come here and see everything in person before you make your final decisions.
Yep.
So after you go through all that discovery phase, find out about the program, platforms, the design paths, the packages, our sales advisor is going to recommend a home plan for you. And that will come with an estimate. You'll have that opportunity to look that over. You can talk about some different options. And we're going to get you to the point where we can then go to the actual PSA agreement. And that's when you get into really honing in and picking those finishes. One other thing I just want to mention, during this step, we're also going to be recommending to you local builder options.
Right.
So again, not to go into too much depth, we do have some another webinar where we explain that relationship, but you are going to partner with us and a local builder for your project. So we're going to be supplying the shell and the tempo and doing all the design. Your local builder will be doing the site prep, the foundation, and then installing all of the finishes. And we will recommend builders to you and just help you through that process of picking a local builder to work with.
Yep.
So as I said, we're going to get to this point where you have your land, you have a budget, you have financing, you've gone through the discovery, you have a good idea of the design that you want, the design path that you're going on, the package that you want. So now it's time to sign the PSA agreement.
Yeah.
And once you sign that PSA agreement, now you start working with our PSA team. That PSA team consists of a selection specialist and the project manager. So they're going to take everything that you came up with your sales advisor, and they're going to confirm that everything works. There are some occasions where there's going to be what we call design change orders with a Streamlined.
Sure.
There will be some minor modifications to interior floor plans or porches and decks. We'll have a designer that will take care of that. The project manager is going to look at your site, confirm the orientation, confirm that we can get there with our trucking, which we always can, but occasionally we have to, come up with some unique ways to make that happen. And really, then you're just going to jump into what we call the selections process. If it's a shell package, what you're picking are, if there's a timber frame in your design, there's finishes that you can pick with that design. The windows have a few options as far as colors, divided lights. And then you have some options on the style of exterior doors. So with a shell package, that's the extent of the selections, but our team will still walk you through that, let you know what your options are. And then if you have the tempo, now you're going to go through all those other finishes that we talked about. And as Alison mentioned, we have this process. It starts out virtually, where there's a software that you can use to go through all the different options. You can spend some time exploring what those are. Our team will then walk you through questions that you have, and we start narrowing it down to just a couple of options from multitude of options. And eventually then, like I mentioned before, the final step is coming here to our showroom and sitting down in person, looking at things, feeling them, touching them before you make your final decisions.
That's usually the fun part.
It is.
That's the part everyone really enjoys.
Yeah, and that's a good time, and it ends up being 3-4 hours or so. So not too much time, but enough time to really get a good sense of what it is that you're picking. So when the selections are done, we're really ready then to move you into what we call the draft build contract phase. So we know what your design is. You have already received, and I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but when you sign that PSA, we've already given you an estimate for that shell package. As long as that shell package hasn't changed, so you already have a fixed price for that shell, we're going to update your build contract or draft build contract with the selections that you actually picked. And we'll have that draft contract all ready for you to go, for you to look at it. You're going to then have your local builder take that draft contract, and then they're going to estimate their scope as well.
Yep.
So the local builder can be involved in the process at any point. We welcome them to join in what we call the kickoff meeting for the PSA. Sometimes a builder will actually come to the in-person selections meeting. We want them as involved as possible because they are part of the team. But when we get to the draft contract phase, now that's when they take it and then they do an estimate for their scope. So you'll have our draft contract, you'll have an estimate from your builder. At that point, if you don't need financing, you are pretty much ready to go to a build contract. If you need financing, you will then take that information to your lending institution and go through the approval process. And we will certainly help you through that process, provide you any information. One of the reasons why we have a project manager involved at this stage is so that the builder really has a resource to ask very detailed questions if they need to, know something that isn't obvious in any of the other plans. So, end of PSA, you have the draft contract, you have your builder on board, you have your financing in place, you're approved for that financing, and you're ready to sign a build contract. That's when it gets really exciting, right? Everything's been on paper until this point, and once you get into that build phase, things start becoming a little bit more real. First step of that build contract phase is that we're providing permit plans that will be given to the local jurisdiction for a permit approval. So we'll work with your local builder, but we're going to provide those plans, provide all the information that's necessary, and then your local builder will then be the one to take that to the local jurisdiction and get that approval. Once that building permit is approved, then we produce what we call the construction documents. This is what your builder is really going to take to all of their subcontractors and everyone that's doing that work on your home, and really start coming up with a plan for making that happen. Do you want to talk a little bit, Alison? We haven't really mentioned this yet, but talk about the production schedule and the timelines and how that works kind of throughout the different phases.
Yeah, so your place in the production queue, we call it to start with, is held by signing that first PSA contract. So that's when our company, begins to assume your project in our overall schedule. As you hit particular milestones and you go on, that becomes more and more refined in our ability to predict that. So the next milestone would be signing the build contract, and that sets you up for the second half of where you're going to land in production. And as you receive permit approval, as you have your financing in place, those sort of things are all going to influence when your site date happens. And so the site date is based on the availability of our installation crews, and so that's then that, and it's also coordinated with the local builder very much so.
Correct.
So we're kind of able to remain flexible in coordinating that with the local builder.
And that's another reason why we want the local builder on board as soon as possible, because we'll be communicating with your local builder about their schedule, our schedule, and trying to work something out that's going to be in everybody's best interest between our production schedule and when the site is going to be ready. So once the builder has the construction documents, often at this point, land clearing has already happened. but excavation can start for real. Foundation can be put in. And once that foundation is placed is when we really get that final go ahead that we can schedule the installation date. So the installation date, and people always ask this question, how long does it take to build your house? So there's two steps to that. The first one is the production. So most Unity homes, houses are produced in our factory in less than a week. That's all those panels that are manufactured in a production facility. So they'll go through in about a week, probably a little bit less. And then depending on how far off the site date is, we will store those panels until they're needed on site. Once we get on site, most of our houses are what we refer to as raised, but that's all the panels assembled to where you have that weather tight and airtight enclosure. Takes about 1 to 2 weeks.
It's always super impressive. People say, I went from a foundation to a house in a matter of days. If you blink, you'll miss it.
It does. It happens quickly. So as I mentioned, when we're done with that raising, you have that weather tight, weather resistant and airtight shell, and it is ready at that point for all of the finishes. So everything from siding and roofing to electrical rough-in and plumbing and HVAC, those things can get going right away. This is where now we hand it off to your local builder. They are taking over at this point. They're coordinating with all of the subcontractors. If you have a tempo package, we'll be coordinating with your local builder on the delivery of those finishes. Things like siding and trim will happen almost immediately after the shell is raised. And then other things will happen as they're ready, like rough plumbing will come quickly, but things like cabinetry and flooring will be the last things that are delivered on site.
I also like to emphasize that process of getting your home raised with our panels within the matter of 1 to 2 weeks is covering the scope of work that would happen in 3 to 4 months on site. And when you think of how long it would take to get it framed, insulated, sheathed, and windows and doors installed, and your interior partition walls up, that would have taken 3 to 4 months to do on site. And it's also, we're building your panels in the shop at the same time as your foundation is being installed. Usually it lines up about like that. So instead of having to do your foundation and then do all of your framing, things can happen overlapping. And so that's where the time savings comes from offsite fabrication.
Yeah, and we're really at the end of the process. Once your local builder has all the finishes done, you're ready to move in. And, this is a very simplified process. There are more steps than what we've gone through, some minor details, but generally this is a pretty simplified, smooth process and gets you from initial design concept to move in much quicker than a standard design build on-site process.
Yeah, and so we hope that everyone involved in the process finds all of the efficiencies in working with us. That's the local builder. Is usually really excited when they get to work on a Unity home and they realize those efficiencies as well. And then as the homeowner, you have that high performance home that's durable, easy to maintain, healthy, and hopefully you loved the process.
All right, so we're going to take a look at some of your questions now. And
let's see, we've got some that came in.
Yeah, we have a few questions here.
All right, so one of the first questions, or a couple of them, are about where we can provide houses. So some people look like some folks are in southern Wisconsin, some Illinois, and asking about if we build in the Midwest. Do you want to address that?
Sure. So the short answer is yes, we do. Technically, we can build anywhere. We've built as far west as Wyoming and as far south as North Carolina, and a few stops in between. The majority of our houses are obviously in the Northeast and in New England, but we can go anywhere. Just one thing to note is the farther away we go, the higher the shipping costs can be. But we can give you an idea of what that may be, and just talk to you about the pros and cons of those shipping costs. But yes, the short answer is yes, we can build just about anywhere. I'm going to qualify those just about. There's a few locations due to local regulations regarding offsite construction that make it difficult, but yeah, most places are fine.
Yeah. We have a question about a staff. Do we have an on-staff surveyor? And the answer to that is no, but we do have connections that we can help facilitate for you. Depending on where you're located, we've got lots of connections. We have a lot of projects that happen in the Northeast, so we are especially well equipped to help you if that's one of your locations. We also have a really great document that the sales team can share with you that it details a nice scope of work for the site surveyor for whomever you may be hiring, so that you can clearly facilitate that as well. Make sure you get the right scope of work out of it.
And we have some tips for finding someone locally if you happen to be in an area where we don't know of anyone. Often we have local builders that we can reach out to, and they know of surveyors. Actually just doing Google search often will bring something up. Another really good trick is if you're looking for anybody, any kind of local tradesperson, go to your local home center, lumber yard. They will often be able to recommend different subcontractors and builders and other building professionals as well. So we have a question on the showroom.
Yeah, where is the showroom located?
Yeah, where's the showroom? The showroom, we are here in Walpole, New Hampshire, which is our main office. So here in Walpole, our main offices, we also have our timber frame shop and our woodworking shop, our millwork shop here. And then just a little bit down the road in Keay, New Hampshire is our production facility.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly the reason for that question. But if you're asking, like maybe some of those people that are from Illinois or from Wisconsin, and they're thinking, do I have to come all the way out to the showroom? No, you don't have to. We have done a tempo package, especially during the pandemic. We did all of them remotely. So it is possible to do it remotely. And again, we can, there are some samples that we can send to you.
Sure.
Through the mail. We can also guide you towards some local showrooms that may have similar samples that you can look at if that's a situation.
Yeah. Our ability to deliver the tempo package is limited to the New England states. I will add though.
Correct.
And let's see.
So if you have a shell package in Wisconsin, for example, and you're looking at timber finishes, we can send you some samples of the timber finishes to see those in person.
Let's see. One of the questions is asking if Unity builds the structure on site. So the way that our offsite fabrication works is we build the panels in the factory and we have those shipped to the site, and it is our crew that's doing the installation of our panels, which is really great because that is the QA of the installation. Or actually, I would say the performance of the home depends on the installation and that it's done right. So our crews doing that it ensures that.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned this either, but at the conclusion of our shell installation, our crew does a blower door test. So you can Google what a blower door test is, but essentially it's testing the airtightness of the building.
Right.
And so we're going to do a blower door test as quality assurance. And if there's any minor leaks somewhere, we're going to fix those so that, as Alison said, you can have the confidence that when we leave, you're getting a high performance shell that you expect. All right, scrolling through a couple of questions here. Someone said, do we have plans for a West Coast production plant in the future? We do not in the near future. It's certainly a lofty goal of ours to be able to open up additional production facilities. so that we can bring those shipping and trucking costs down for other parts of the country. But not at the moment.
So another question that came in is, says, you seem to primarily focus on slab foundations. This person has a strong preference for a full basement. Other than costs, are there disadvantages with a basement? This is a big topic of conversation in a lot of sales conversations.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. I would not say that there's anything wrong with a basement.
Right.
So certainly nothing wrong with it. You did bring up the one cost. There is an additional cost because you have extra excavation, extra concrete. Now we need a floor system for that first floor with supports. And if you go a slab on grade, you have the option of doing sealed concrete floor. If you're doing a basement, now you need flooring. So there are quite a few additional costs. You are adding to the conditioned envelope. Mm-hmm. So your energy costs are going to be slightly higher. So there's just a couple of things that you want to be aware of. But other than that, there are some advantages. It gives you that extra space. The square foot cost of adding a basement is less than adding more footprint on a slab. And one of the big advantages is you can move the mechanicals into the basement.
Yeah.
So it frees up a little bit of space up on your main floors.
I'll also add that a common misunderstanding about slab on grades that we offer is we're not offering what's called a floating slab, which isn't a good idea to utilize in Northeast and cold climates. What we offer for a slab foundation is actually called a frost protected slab. And so that has 4-foot footings, and it's insulated on the outside of that footing as well as underneath the entire slab itself. And so that is a safe and appropriate way to provide a high performance slab foundation in the colder climates.
Yeah, and what that allows you is that the temperature of the slab is going to be much closer to the air temperature than it is the ground temperature because we have that layer of insulation. So it's not the cold basement floor that you may be used to from houses built years ago.
Right.
So do you inspect and cull out moldy lumber?
Yes.
So yeah, and one of the advantages of the offsite construction is that all of our lumber is stored indoors. So even prior to the production of it, we have everything inside our covered warehouse. Our warehouse is about 110,000 square feet, and that covers all of our lumber, all of our materials, all of our inventory, plus our production.
Yeah, and part of our quality control process that we have as a manufacturing plant includes the delivery. So material is inspected upon delivery and could be rejected if any moldy lumber was part of that, or it will be pulled out. And also our machines do not like to operate with moldy lumber. So it's not good for our machines. So we're pulling it out. Upon delivery, it's being rejected, and it would also get rejected if it was caught at any other point in time in our process. So that's a value of not just offsite fabrication, but the full-on quality control process that we have.
Yeah, once we get on site, because we're having a fairly rapid installation of those panels, we go from the foundation to a fully weather tight enclosure in a very quick, short period of time. Mm-hmm. So your framing then is not also exposed to the weather for months at a time before you get the roofing on and you get it protected. So we're very, very aware of that and very careful about the mold.
Yes. So another question is, is there a way to take a look at the tempo design options prior to engaging and starting in the process? So the answer is yes. We have the ability in the sales process to show you some of those options digitally or remotely, and we can also give you a sneak peek to the Gather tool that we use. So yeah, you have the ability to kind of evaluate the options, the materials that you'll have access to as well. And then, remembering that you don't have to go with any of the materials if you chose to source it yourself. And, we have options from any of the vendors really that we work with.
Yeah, and as an example, we use Kohler plumbing fixtures. So we're going to recommend some fixtures that we think fit with certain styles, but ultimately you have the option of picking any Kohler fixture that they have available.
Seems like a lot of people from outside of New England are in
Yeah.
this one. This is great. Um, we talked a little bit about slab versus basement costs. A lot of slab questions.
Yeah, there are
versus
a
basement
few people
questions.
asking some specific questions about specific areas. Yeah, if you reach out to us, we can give you some more information on a rough idea of what shipping costs might be to a specific area, and if we have recommendations for local builders. And I would just also add, I'm not sure if we had made this clear before, if you're building in an area where we don't have a recommendation for a local builder, we're still going to work with you on that. We'll do some of that research. We'll do some vetting. It's a little bit easier if us as a professional builder reach out, explain to them what it is that you're looking for, or we're looking for, and kind of vet them for a good fit with us. We can do that, and we will do that because we know it's such an important part of the project. So we're not going to just leave you on your own to go find your own builder.
So we have this is a question because it came up a lot in some of the questions. So I think we'll touch on it a little bit. It goes back to the slab versus basements. But it was saying, how many of your Unity homes have basements and how many have slab? And I think it's about 50-50, but it really is more influenced by what's possible on their site, I think. So the folks that come to us and they have a flat site, almost all of those folks will go with the slab on grade because there is significant cost savings to that. The folks that usually have the full basement are doing so because their site requires it. So if there's a grade change more than 6 feet over the width of the floor plan or the footprint of the house, you'll have to go with something called a walkout basement or daylight basement because the grade change is just too steep to allow for anything else. So we have projects like that, and that's usually the site dictating that. We also have projects that will have a full basement. So it's a fully submerged basement, usually around 8 feet or 9 feet high. And that can be a choice for you if you're on a flat site or not. And that would be a choice that you would make based on storage needs or things like that. But I like to explain to people too that you shouldn't think of a fully submerged basement like that as added living space because it's really not a high quality living space. There's not a lot of light down there, even with windows or basement windows added. It's not the greatest quality. So, I know lots of people in New England just can't get away from their basements because of storage. Where am I going to put all my stuff? We invite you to think twice about that and future living where you might need a slab on, or not necessarily slab on grade, but you might need single level living anyways, and things like that. And it's really all about placing priority of what you need with what your budget can do and what your site needs.
And we can certainly offer some options for that storage because that is a big one that comes up. So some of the options that we have are you can make the garage a little bit bigger. So our standard garage is a 2-car garage, 24 by 24. You can make it 24 by 32. That gives you some extra storage space. We can also put storage, what we call storage trusses, a storage attic above that garage. That gives you a little bit of extra space to store some things. And then even, some options as a shed on the property, thinking through the total cost of that and the implications of a slab versus a basement. But again, like we said before, there's nothing wrong with a basement. So don't feel like if you really need a basement or you want a basement that you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
We'll just help talk you through the different pros and cons of that.
There was a question, it touched a little bit on installation. Are there any installation problems with basements? And we haven't seen that, but that is, I think, because we intentionally have a very simple solution for foundations in both our slab on grade and our full fully submerged basement. It's a very straightforward approach that we have chosen so that it can be installed correctly, in most cases by any build contractor rather. So we have some questions about the website too. So I think we can touch on that really kind of high level
Sure.
in that our website's a little bit in process. We're in the process of getting more information on there in a better organized way. So in the future, you might see things like the constellations on the website and added photos and things like that. We're just a little bit in the process. So if you have any resources that you're specifically interested in, I would encourage you to connect with a sales advisor, and we can get you resources like that in the meantime.
And I think it's a good time to give a shout out to Damaris Graham, who is behind the camera. She is our marketing content specialist, and she is working hard at updating that website as well. So
Yeah.
more to come on that in the near future.
Yeah. Let's see.
A shout out to our sales advisor, Christine Osterwalder. So she's been great. Yes, she is.
Yeah.
So glad to hear that you're enjoyed working with her. You want to talk about the HVAC?
Yeah.
Let's do that one.
Let's see. So the question is about who does the installation and makes the recommendations for the HVAC systems. And so Unity Homes does spec the HVAC design for the house. We're designing all the homes to be all electric, and we focus those systems on air source heat pumps, and HRVs or ERVs, and usually an air source heat pump hot water heater, but we do have choices within the hot water options. And so we're sizing and specifying those systems that we have a spec sheet that it gets handed off to the local builder, who will give it to the subcontractor, the HVAC contractor, for their purchasing of the equipment and installation of the equipment. But we've kind of laid out the size and everything. And that's important. We found that that's important over 15 years of doing this now. To get that sizing right, we really want to make sure that the actual energy efficiency of our shell is accounted for in the sizing of those systems. And so that's why we took that in-house and started doing that ourselves. It's a great value to not have to go outside and do that outside of with a mechanical engineer or something. And again, it is focused on an all-electric home with air source heat pump systems. If you're interested in something different than that, it would be outside of our recommendation, and it would be on you to do so. Sometimes we get questions on ground source heat pumps and things like that, and it's just not within our wheelhouse to be specifying that. So it would be on the homeowner to pursue in that.
And you certainly have the option to go with something different than what we recommend. But as Allison mentioned, we will recommend the equipment, we'll size it, and we will make sure that there are paths for any ductwork. So within the shell design, we're going to make sure that you can get from where the equipment is located to the rooms that need to be conditioned. In the case of the HRV, there's going to be an intake and an exhaust that needs to go to the outside. We're going to put those, what we call penetrations, in the wall panels, so that they're all ready to go for the local installer. And that local installer then will be responsible for running all that ductwork. But we've specified and recommended the equipment that will be the appropriate size.
Mm-hmm. We have another question about being grid tied, but having all of your energy supplied by solar, and that we would call net zero. So net zero energy refers to that a renewable energy, typically solar, is providing all of the energy for the house.
And you say over the course of a year, it produces.
Sure, that's where the net.
It produces the same or the more than what you're using.
Yes, yeah. So in winter, you might be pulling from the grid, but in summer, you're overproducing, and it all kind of nets out. Unity homes very often achieve that net zero status. And they do that by installing usually a moderately sized PV system. Somewhere around a 7 to 11 kilowatt system will actually cover 100% of the energy use, if sited correctly. So another way to think about that too is a lot of our projects have received HERS ratings. And a HERS rating is a home energy rating score. And that can give you an idea of how energy efficient a home is. It starts at 100, which would be equivalent to a current code built house. And it goes down to 0, meaning that all the energy is covered by renewables. And before you have renewables in there, our Unity homes are typically falling at about 40. So that means they're 60% better than a code-built house. And that 40% makes it very easy to achieve that net zero with a moderate-sized PV system. Let's see, we've got 4 minutes left here, so just a few more questions.
Let me take that one on the finished cost range.
Oh, yeah.
So the question that says, what does your finished cost range include? So if you go to our website, you go to the home plans, you click on any one of those plans on there, there are specifications. So it lists square footage and a bunch of different things. In there, we will give you a price for that shell. And then we also include what we call the finished cost. And it's a range. So that finished cost is essentially from foundation up. So it's going to include all the concrete for your foundation, the shell package that we provide, all the finishes, whether we provide them or you provide them, and then the installation of all those finishes and the mechanicals. So sometimes it's easier to explain what's not included. What's not included is the cost of the land and the preparation for that land and the excavation. And then anything else like your well, your septic, if you need those things, if you're not connecting up to city sewer water. So those things would not be included in a finish range because they are very site specific. There is a wide range for those things. So finish cost, think of it from foundation up.
Great. There's a question about banks. Are there any banks that we're used to working with and understand how we build? And the answer is yes. While you're in the sales process, the sales team can provide you with some builders that have successfully funded our projects in the past.
So some banks.
Banks, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
We love it if builders funded our
Builders,
projects.
banks. Builders don't usually fund. That wouldn't work out very long for them. So the lenders, we have a list of lenders that have successfully funded projects. So they're familiar with our process and our payment schedule and also the 2 contract scenario. So we have nationwide as well as local to the Northeast options.
So you have options there.
Yeah.
All right, we have probably time for one more question. All right, so there's a couple of questions here about weather. So let me tackle those quickly.
Okay.
So it has to do with installation and the weather. And so we are going to set up a raising date, installation date out a ways. It probably won't be finalized until we're maybe within a month. But obviously we're not going to know exactly what the weather is, 4 weeks out. If the weather, if we get up to the week before and there's a significant weather event, like a blizzard coming through, or, rarely it's a hurricane, but if something is projected for that week, we may, push it out a week. Otherwise, we are probably going to go forward. It's very rare that we lose, more than a day or so due to weather. Every once in a while, there is a snowstorm that wasn't predicted, or the one thing that does affect us because we're using a crane to put the panels in place is wind. Mm-hmm. So occasionally the wind gets too high that it's unsafe to do those panels. In those cases, we've often been able to be productive, setting something else up doing work that doesn't require the crane while we wait for that wind to die down. And in most cases, we may lose a day, a half a day, but we can sort of make that up by working ahead and being productive in other ways. So I guess the short answer is the weather does have some impact. It's very rarely a significant impact. We have ways of working around that.
So it is 4 o'clock, and we appreciate all of you for hanging on through that Q&A. It's always, sometimes a very valuable section of the webinar. We invite you to check out our website, fill out the contact form if you're looking to get in touch with a sales member. We'd love to learn more about your project. We hope you follow us on social media and stay tuned for any of our next events by following our events page. And thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. Thank you. And I hope to see all of you very soon.